Hello and welcome to the Biological Resources Information Program for the Highway 247 Roadway Improvements Project. This training is provided by Alluvian Biological Consulting. Now this training has four broad objectives. Hopefully by the end of this presentation you'll be familiar with all four of these points. First, we're going to cover the definition and implications of take. Then we'll move on to your responsibilities if you encounter a regulated species. We'll have a brief introduction to the protected species associated with this project, and then we'll go over some general mitigation measures that need to be followed in order to prevent any incidents of take. We'd like to emphasize that this training is meant to supplement, not replace, the training information handouts that you should have received before watching this video. If you have not received a training pamphlet or booklet, please request one from your supervisor or on-site alluvian biologist. Let's start by discussing take. Take is a broadly defined term, and under the Federal Endangered Species Act, take means to harass, harm, pursue, hunt, shoot, wound, kill, capture, collect, or attempt to engage in any such conduct. Now, penalties for take will vary from species to species. However, any individual found to be committing unsanctioned take may be dealt hefty fines, and in some cases up to a year in jail time. These penalties are assessed for each instance of unsanctioned take. So what should you do if you encounter a regulated species on the project? The very first thing you should do is ensure that you do not touch or approach the animal. You should then immediately suspend work within 100 feet of the animal, especially if this work would result in take. Your next step is to notify your supervisor or the on-site biologist. If a biologist is not on site, please contact Gennaro Lockhart at the number listed on this slide and in your training materials. The next few slides will give you a brief overview of all of the listed and regulated species that occur on this project site. Desert tortoise is a large tortoise species native to desert habitats within California. Individuals bear a high domed shell with large scutes as well as stocky forelimbs that are used for digging. This species is herbivorous, feeding primarily on desert grasses and herbaceous flowering plants. Tortoises spend most of their life sheltering from the intense heat of the desert sun in underground burrows. These burrows are excavated in sandy soil beneath bushes, under rock formations, or out in the open. It is not uncommon for tortoises to seek shelter beneath parked vehicles. For this reason, it is imperative that the space beneath parked vehicles is inspected daily to ensure that no animals are sheltering underneath. If a vehicle has been parked for more than 30 minutes, inspect it thoroughly before operating. A variety of bird species have been found nesting in or immediately adjacent to Caltrans right-of-ways. Nest sites are often placed in crevices, cavities, seams, or weep holes within bridges, and other nests are constructed on open, vertical cement surfaces on bridges. The species that utilize man-made structures as nest sites tend to be more tolerant of urban conditions, like increased noise, light, vibration, and human presence. But they can nonetheless be sufficiently disturbed during construction or maintenance activities to cause nest abandonment or inattentiveness, resulting in the death or loss of eggs or juveniles. Incubation and brood rearing require approximately 4 to 5 weeks for smaller birds, but can take up to 12 weeks for larger birds like raptors. Any active bird nest found within or adjacent to the project area will require a mandatory 100-foot no-work buffer until it can be confirmed that the chicks have fledged and left the nest. Now we'll go over some of the key species protection measures for this project. These slides won't comprise an exhaustive list of necessary protective measures, but they should give you a good idea of what's expected of you. There are several general protective measures that need to be followed on this project. I'll go over these quickly, but you should review these measures in your training materials. First of all wildlife should be allowed to leave the job site unharmed, and this includes any animals that don't carry state or federal protections. Additionally, to prevent wildlife entrapment on the project, all excavations, including trenches, holes, and pits, as well as all pipes and hoses, need to be covered at the end of each workday. If covering an excavation is not practical, earthen or wooden escape ramps need to be installed every 15 feet along the excavation. Additionally, all food-related waste generated on the site needs to be contained in sealed trash containers. These containers need to be removed from the site daily. Food waste attracts wildlife to the site, which could ultimately cause project delays. And during construction operations, stockpiling of construction materials, portable equipment, vehicles, and supplies needs to be restricted to the designated construction staging areas. We'll wrap things up with a few quick reminders from the previous slides. Perhaps the most important takeaway from this presentation is remembering what your responsibilities are if you see a regulated species within the project site. Don't touch or approach regulated wildlife and immediately report encounters to your supervisor or the on-site biologist. Perhaps the two most important takeaways after that are to stay within the project boundaries and staging areas and to check for desert tortoises beneath parked vehicles on the job site, especially before that particular vehicle is operated. It's important to remember that you and your company are wholly responsible for following the measures in this training video and its associated training materials, as well as the permits and specifications for this project. So please revisit this video and your training materials as needed. This concludes the Biological Resources Information Program training video. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions about what's been covered in this presentation or your training materials, please direct them to your on-site alluvian biologist.